focus. Ideate, innovate, enable. Tata Communications and CNBC-TV18 present Building India's Financial Cloud Community.
Hello and welcome to the special show. CNBC-TV18 and Tata Communications present Building India's Financial Cloud Community. Now, the financial services sector has typically been an early adopter of new technologies in order to build a stronger customer connect by using these new tools and analytics. Thus, this sector has been keenly interested in the advantages that cloud computing has to offer, since the transition to cloud can be a key enabler towards improving customer service, driving operational efficiencies, and boosting revenues. While the benefits are many, there are also key challenges, namely data security, control, access, and location of that data, and of course, fulfilling those regulatory norms. Now, compounding these challenges are the large number of options which are available from private cloud, public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, community cloud, just to name a few. And making the right decision is business critical. On the show today, we'll discuss how to build the right cloud strategy for financial institutions which can deliver the best results. And to do that today, we have with us a lineup of key panelists representing leaders from across the financial services space. Let me introduce them to you, starting with Rajesh Avasthi, who's the head of cloud and MHS at Tata Communications. Good to see you, Rajesh. Ashish Karunakaran, who's head IT at ICICI Prudential AMC Limited. Ajay Vernikar, Chief Technology Officer, Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance Company Limited. And Gautam Datta, who's Chief Information and Digital Officer of Bajaj Allianz Life Insurance. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Gautam, what's been your approach at Bajaj Allianz as far as early adoption is concerned? Because that's the trend that we've typically seen in the financial services space. Has early adoption been an enabler? Has it helped you as a company?
Hey, thanks, Paramita, and good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for having me here. Cloud is no more a new kid in the block, new technology stack in the block. Almost all of us across industries have already started offloading some of our workloads on cloud. Now the question comes is, what are the purpose of some of us going on to cloud? Most of us, most often, going on to cloud for elasticity, so that on demand, on requirement, you could pile up, and at the same time, as the demand goes out, you could shrink down. That remains one of the core proposition per se. However, there are few institutes or few organizations, few entities who chosen cloud to do little more than that. One is, of course, Bajaj Allianz Life, where we chose cloud. One, to ensure not only at the digital side of our elasticity, but ensure that our core, the back end, the back systems are also service ready, absolutely cloud native, and it should propel our drive on innovation.
Ashish Karunakaran, we just heard from Gautam. What's been your trajectory as far as cloud is concerned? Because, big concern is, of course, the security aspect as well. How much of your, current load of work is on-prem as opposed to on-cloud? Did you, plan to make that transition all in one go?
We are currently in that particular transition journey as such, and so we kind of take the concern about the compliance issues and the security is actually it was kind of fixed up in the past. So the compliance and the security has actually been taken care well. And if you look at the kind of security what nowadays the cloud is providing over here, is probably maybe an on-prem point of view. We will not be able to kind of get into that particular level as such. So I've been actually working on the landing zone architecture a couple of weeks back. So the kind of the level of security infrastructure actually, like the level of components which are available as that with respect to like as a when you need to have consume that, actually you can go and have it, and it's an updated one as always. Because when you're having an on-prem infrastructure assets, typically what you kind of do is that actually you go and invest, and you are forced to kind of live it with that for the next 5 years assets. There is a lot of technological advancement that is happening in every day as such. So the cloud is providing you that facility kind of things to kind of go and consume as much as you want. And at the same time, what happens is that you're always updated about the latest security infrastructure, as well as the kind of controls what you're having.
I want to delve a little more about security, but I think some great points that you've made about that transition journey and some of those what have been the benefits. But Ajay, let me bring you in here because as I read out in my lead-in, I was saying that there are a bewildering number of options. I mean, do you go public? Do you go private? Do you go hybrid? Today we're talking about community cloud. I mean, how do you make that right choice? And does it all have to be all in, or or all out? I mean, does it have to be just one solution? How did you approach the entire transition to cloud, so to speak?
Right. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. And it's a privilege to talk about one of the most dearest enablers, I would say, in this age, which is cloud. I think it's talked about enough and more. But let me go straight to the point, Pravita. Yes, being early adopters of cloud has huge benefits. And I think we've seen that enough and more in the last 2.5 years during the pandemic. I think the companies and organizations and products who have leveraged cloud early have stayed and have grown and have leveraged in the need. We've talked about Zoom and Teams and a lot of companies who have been early adopters of cloud computing and have been able to embrace the demand, right? And at the end of the day, gain business exponential growth for their organizations, right? So I think there is great merit in early adopting cloud, and I think the early adopters have been successful in these tough times. Coming back to your specific question of what should be the way forward, you're absolutely right. I think cloud is not something which is a magic wand or it's a single one fit all for all kind of workloads, right? All of us have been in some form or the other having private cloud. Like for instance, Aditya Birla Capital has invested in a private cloud for the last like 7 to 8 years. In fact, 95% of our workload is on a private VM, right? We use hypervisor as well as VMware and all sorts of virtualized environments. So that's great. I mean, that story is great. We've managed our internal workloads efficiently, right? But we need to embrace the power of public cloud, and I think we all understand that. But it has to be done in a very selective manner, and I think we in our organization use a kind of form of checklist which we follow to, even at one stage, identify what are the applications that are meant for the public cloud, right? Everything need not be moving to the public cloud, right? But that's a biggest blunder people do, and they realize that when you get a fat bill from any of these service providers, right? So it's not a child's play, but it's powerful, right? It can be lifting organizations right up, and it can be bringing it down with extreme costs that hit us in a surprise. But please note, it's a fantastic tool which has demesmerized the complexity of infrastructure.
Rajesh, I'm hoping that you were able to hear a little bit of what the other panelists have been saying, that clearly early adoption was a big benefit, particularly when the pandemic struck and everybody had to sort of pivot and relook at the entire model, so to speak. But when you hear some of this, some of these voices of what they have experienced, some of those challenges, what are your thoughts at this point?
I think you're right, and most of the panelists were also talking about that cloud is a very good enabler for business. It shouldn't be considered more as a technology platform. It should be considered as a business platform, which would enable some of the businesses moving forward. And also during the pandemic times, a lot of people saw benefits coming out of cloud as well. But I would go with what Ajay was talking about. Yes, you get that flexibility, you get the scale from the cloud. So what is important for you is to make sure that you utilize it responsibly. And that's where I think the role of a CTO or a CIO or a CDO in an organization becomes very important. Some of the points which Ajay was alluding towards, where he was saying that you need to look at what is the kind of business application that you have, whether it is suited for a public cloud environment or it is suited for a private cloud. And that's where one of the things which we as a service provider help our customers in their multi-cloud journey is to look at what is the kind of application that you have. Is it a predictable workload application? Then possibly from a cost benefit ratio perspective, a private cloud holds a better solution for that. Whereas if you have an application which is unpredictable, you don't know what is the kind of peaks that you will get. And I'm going to talk from a BFSI segment perspective. If you talk about banks, people talking about internet banking or mobile banking, you do not know how many set of people are going to come in there. If we talk of insurance company, because most of the panelists are from insurance, a lot of insurance companies today have their digital platforms, or they are getting inputs from the aggregators who are becoming a digital enabler for some of these insurance companies.
It's time for us to head into a short break. You're watching our special feature on building India's financial cloud community. Don't go anywhere.
Tata Communications and CNBC-TV18 present Building India's Financial Cloud Community. Tata Communications and CNBC-TV18 present Building India's Financial Cloud Community.
Welcome back. We are in conversation with our panelists on how to build India's financial cloud community. Let's continue with the discussion. Rajesh, I want to hear your thoughts on this because the temptation seems to be to go towards the public cloud. Is that a viable, cost-effective solution that balances all the need requirements, including compliance as well as security, data security?
Public cloud is a very viable solution. You have technology which is supporting some of the requirements. However, one of the inputs that we have got from various BFSI segment customers is that you have to do very regular audits. Unfortunately, in India, as of now, this is an industry which is still regulated, and there are audits which are physical audits also. So when those kind of audit requirements or reports are required, you have certain challenges with the public cloud providers. But that does not mean that the benefits that you could get from a public cloud environment can be washed away because of those audit requirements. It is a very viable solution, but it needs to be looked at what is the kind of business application that you want to deploy, as I was talking about it in the earlier stage. And that's where we believe from Tata Communication perspective, it's going to be a multi-cloud environment for our customers, where certain workloads may continue on private cloud, where you would have disaster recovery, maybe on a cloud, which could be a public cloud or a private cloud, multi-tenanted like ISO private cloud that we have. Or you could have every workload running on the public cloud.
Ashish, what is it, once you hear these inputs, what is it that you have decided at ICICI Prudential, given, of course, you have one of the largest customer bases, huge complexity of data and volume as well. As a company, have you veered towards the hybrid cloud solution, more towards the public? How do you react to some of the comments you've heard?
So for this particular approach, so one is actually we need to kind of leverage what the cloud is actually providing us, specifically with respect to addressing some of the challenges. With that is the scalability what is required and adoption of the new technologies which is coming in the market assets. So public cloud is the first way to go. And so once we the adoption is completely in place, then rather actually we kind of taste actually what exactly like the kind of technologies what we need to offer. that is the time we need to kind of go into more of like cost optimization assets. So when it is coming to the comparison between a private and a public cloud, it is predominantly coming into the cost aspect. And of course, actually like complying with certain regulatory requirements as such, as and when it is coming. But as of now, there is nothing with respect to the AMC perspective, which is preventing us to go to the public cloud infrastructure as such.
Gautam, is that a concern? Because the regulatory framework, to be honest, also keeps changing. It does become more demanding. I mean, is that a concern in the long term? Because, you know, as you said, you yourself have been an early adopter of cloud technology, but looking at the longer term horizon, would you say those are some of the valid concerns as far as public cloud is concerned on the data security aspect?
I think first thing first, data security, data ownership stays with the business. So even if I'm hosted out of ABC Cloud, each term of security is owned by us. That's very clear. We can't pass on that responsibility to anyone. Now, when it is running in somebody else's data center, but we have the ownership, definitely there are concerns. Definitely there are areas where we need more clarity. We need to have more clarity in terms of what's happening and our ability to monitor them. The amount of investment that can happen to make this clarity coming up in a on-prem data center versus a provider like AWS or Azure or anyone, I think the providers have far better control as of today.
Ajay, the future, you've been talking a lot about the public cloud. Today, we are also exploring what a community cloud looks like. Do you feel that perhaps as we move ahead, some of these options will become more, created exclusively for certain segments, like in this case, the financial cloud, the financial community cloud, which is being created for the BFSI space? You see that trend also picking pace. What are those trends you're anticipating?
So I think moving to the cloud is rather public cloud, and I'm not saying public cloud. I'm more referring to hybrid cloud, because there will be some workload. Like in our case, we don't intend to move 100% of the workload to the public cloud. There will be 15% of the workload which will continue to remain on premise for sure. We're keeping that leverage there. But I think what, in my opinion, will make a big shift is to see more SaaS-based services evolving on the cloud. I think we restrict our discussions to cloud to limit it to infrastructure as a service, right? But there is a lot of meat out there to leverage some of the get in, get out kind of services which cloud services providers offer. Like, for instance, you have BigQuery, you have some Hadoop clusters, right? So, or you can run high capacity quantum computing, queries running, right, on some instances which can be on the cloud. I think those are big wins for us. And somewhere, if service providers can reach out to corporates like us to make it easy to get in, get out, and utilize these services much more easily, I think it will be a big win for us, because today I think to a great extent we still manage that, and we still use integration, and we take a long time to set up those pieces, even if it's on the public cloud. But if we can enable them, like if I want to run really a great analytic model, I can just get into the cloud, use the large compute that I have today, and then get out, right? Getting my reports in like seconds. But it's not so easy today. But that will, right, I'm hoping, will become more and more easier for us to leverage in years to come. So that's
more flexibility, more ability to sort of dip in and dip out for selective services. I mean, that's perhaps a requirement that you're sharing. So let me end with Rajesh. Rajesh, you're hearing some of the requirements, some of the trends that your potential customers are looking at. What do you think will be those offerings which are going to shape up in the future?
First of all, I think what's very important is when the customers are looking at these technology providers who are giving it as a service, they need to consider them as partners who are going to work and evolve along with the customer requirements. That's very important. So you're choosing a partner, and your contracting terms with the partner needs to be tight and flexible also. So you need a flexible partner. That's first thing which I wanted to state. I believe the potential of cloud is still untapped because the business applications today that we have are still working on that client server architecture. I see there could be huge potential when we are looking at from an infrastructure and platform services side, when applications will be migrated to microservices architecture, which are cloud native platforms being utilized for cloud native applications. And that's where I see huge potential for all the BFSI customers to move into, because they have core banking, but there are a lot of peripheral application or core insurance or mutual fund core application which is there, which needs to get connected with the peripheral or the subscribers which they are catering to. So doing a cloud native application and a cloud native platform is something which is going to become very important. Within Tata Communication, we have created ISO Financial Cloud. This is built on our own technology platform we call as ISO Private Cloud. It's a multi-tenanted cloud environment, which can be consumed by customers. However, when we say financial cloud, one, it is complying to the regulators' guidelines. So RBI has certain guidelines, IRDA have certain guidelines, how banks or insurance companies need, or mutual fund companies need to utilize these public cloud environments. So we are taking into account those and making sure that the environment that we have is complying to those requirements. Second thing, which we also added from a Tata Communication perspective, was to make sure that it meets the business continuity requirement. These are becoming essential services. So having a DC, a near DR, or a far DR in a different seismic zone becomes a norm. And that's something which is going to become very important when you're talking for a specific industry vertical where you want to create community cloud. And also having the cloud workplace protection, which is where you're looking at protection from unknown, basically. So you don't look at only signatures for the antiviruses or EDR systems which are there, but on the fly, look at what are the patterns which are there on the memory and then block those things. So those are some of the things which are going to become very important on the community cloud. And that's what we enable with our ISO Financial Cloud.
Well, we've heard from all our panelists on what the future holds when it comes to cloud computing in the financial services space. Thank you to our panelists for that energizing and informative session. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in for this special feature.
Tata Communications and CNBC-TV18 present Building India's Financial Cloud Community.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.